Today we're going to be talking about parts of radicals. Radicals meaning square roots, but we will have more than square roots. Cube roots, fourth roots, fifth roots, those kind of things. So today we'll just be simplifying radicals. Tomorrow we'll be practicing that. Wednesday we'll be simplifying radicals that have variables in them. Thursday we'll be practicing that. Friday, catch-up day, because I have several people out on field trips on Tuesday and Thursday this week.
Friday, Cosmo Girls are gone.
All Cosmo Girls are gone on Friday?
Oh, we sure
Okay, we haven't. Okay, well then that would be great. It's a catch-up day, so half of this class will be gone. That's okay. Next week we'll multiply radicals, and we'll add and subtract radicals. Okay? And then, because you guys have about 3 full weeks of school left, the following week we'll have a short quiz over it. Okay? And that will be your radical chapter. So, obviously, this large symbol looks like I think it's like a check sign, is your radical symbol. Okay, in this little box up here, there will be number or there won't be a number. Okay? If there's not a number here in this little box, it's assumed that it's a square root, so that's a 2. Okay? If there is, so for instance, like if there's a 3, okay, then that would be a cube root, or a 4 would be a fourth root. Okay? And this little number up here is called a root index. Okay? The number underneath the radical symbol, so for instance, if I put like 125 in here, this is called your radicand. And if you take your root index with your radical symbol with your radicand, all of those are a radical, which is what we are going to be studying. Okay? So just like we have done degrees, now it's the reverse. Down at the bottom it says if the root index is not written, it is automatically a squared, a 2. Okay? Okay, there's going to be 4 steps to doing these. Okay, and we're going to simplify, practice tomorrow, then simplify ones that have variables in it, which are very similar to these, and practice that. Okay, so steps 1. Most of you probably are familiar with or have heard the term make a factor tree. So that's the first thing that we're going to do is make a factor tree. The second step is you're going to look at the root index and make groups of numbers. The root index will tell you if you need groups of 2, groups of 3, groups of 4, etc. The third step, for each group, write one of the numbers out front. And all of you have seen this before, so hopefully today's stuff is maybe, today and tomorrow is more of a review. The new stuff will come mainly on Wednesday. And then the last step is you're going to multiply all numbers in front of the radical and all the numbers inside. The radical. Your factor sheet 1 to 100 might help you so you know what you can divide into. Your calculator help you also. So if you want your factors to 100 sheet, you can use that along with it. You don't have to have your factors to 100 sheet. You don't even need a calculator if you can divide pretty quickly in your head, etc.
Ms. Heather,
Yes.
in the last, number 4, what's that between the word radical and all?
This is an and sign.
And so, okay, thank you.
And this was my mistake. There. Okay, so I have, I don't know, about 10 examples. Okay, so you might need another page, so if you need to go on to page 88 or however you're going to fit these in, just so you know what we're looking at example-wise. Okay, so example number 1, square root of 18. Okay, so what we're looking for is we're looking for exact answers. If I put the square root of 18 in my calculator, you guys see that? Yeah. So if I do square root of 18, I'm going to get a decimal. This is an approximate answer. So I can't use that. I want the exact answer. Okay? So what we have to look at is what numbers will go into 18. What are 2 numbers that will go into 18? 2 and 9. Okay, so we're going to make what's called a factor tree. So you're going to do, your branches are 2 and 9. Okay? Now, 2 is a prime number. 9 is not. What are 2 factors of 9? 3 and 3. Okay, so now we have all prime numbers. Okay? What's your root index? That's not written up here, but we know what's there. It's a 2, right? This is a square root. So I'm looking for groups of 2. Here, I'll just circle it. Okay, so I have one group of 3. So I'm going to put that group on the outside. So I'm going to put a 3 on the outside, and then I'm going to put my square root, and what number was left? A 2, so a 2 stays underneath the radical. So the square root of 18 simplified is 3 the square root of 2. Okay? That's what we're going to be looking at. Anybody remember ever seeing that before? A couple of you? Okay. Okay, so number 2, we'll do the square root of 20. So it doesn't matter what 2 factors you see. Look on your factor sheet if that helps you. What's 2 numbers? 2 and 10 or 4 and 5. It doesn't matter. You're going to get the same answer. Okay? I'll go ahead and do 2 and 10. If you did 4 and 5, that's fine. Actually, I'll do both of them so you guys can see this. You only have to put one on your paper. It's fine. Okay, so Monet said 2 and 10. 10 will break down into 2 and 5. Okay. So if I'm looking at this, I have one group of 2s. So the number that I circled goes on the outside, so this would be 2, and the number that's left stays on the inside. Okay? If you did 4 and 5, 4 breaks down to 2 and 2. So do you see how I would still have 1, 2 on the outside and the 5 left? It doesn't matter how you see it, you should end up with the same answer when you get finished. Okay, so let's look at 3. Now, this says, actually, nope, don't write that one down. That's my mistake. Should be 405. Okay. So, the root index here is 3. So when I make my groups, I want groups of 3 numbers, not groups of 2 like I had before. So 405, I know it's not on your sheet, but what do you know that goes into 405 if it ends in a 5? 5. So let's divide that. You have your calculator now. So if I take 405 and divide by 5, I get 81. Okay. Which one of those numbers can I break down?
9 and 9.
81 is 9 and 9.
3 and 3.
And 9 is 3 and 3 and 3 and 3. Okay. So if I'm looking at my numbers at the end of my branch, so think of these as, if it's a factor tree, these are your leaves at the end, and I'm putting them in highlighted colors. Okay? Now, if I look at my root index is a 3. So I want groups of the same number, and how many numbers need to be in my group? 3. So if I just circle this, I have 3 3s. So on the outside, you're going to put a 3, 1 3, because I have one group of 3s. You're going to put a cube root, so you have to remember to put that root index. And I will give you a personal, I forget that all the time. It's my mistake that I do all the time. I forget to put that root index in there. Okay, so don't be like me and forget that. Now, what's left? What 2 numbers that are highlighted did I not use? 5 and 3. So what am I going to do with those? I'm going to multiply them, and that would give you 15. Very good. What'd you say?
I just get confused when it's like time to break it down.
And you're going to have to just sit there and use your factor sheet, or it might be trial and error on that calculator to break it down. If it ends in a 0 or a 5, 5 will always go into it. If it ends in an even number, 2 will always go into it. Okay. 4. Do the cube root of negative 216.
You couldn't do negatives.
Okay, very good. I'm glad you brought that up. So Abby said that you couldn't do negatives. You cannot do negatives if it's a square root. Okay? Or a 4th root. Sorry. Right here. If it's an odd root, so we're going to, if it's a cube root or a 5th root, I don't think, I'm trying to think because we're going to go back to working on Math Excel, but I don't think they do more than 5th roots. So if it's an odd root, the way you do this is you automatically pull the negative outside. So this is negative the cube root of 216. The negative comes out if it's an odd root.
So if it was like a
if it would have been, as you just said, Abby, so here's Abby's example. If this would have been the fourth root of negative 216, you say, can't do. And then you're finished. Okay? I'm going to try not to give you any of those. It might pop up on Math Excel because I can't set that parameter. Okay?
If they're even, you can't do it.
Correct.
I actually kind of like those,
If-
because you don't have to do lots of them.
Well, that's true. So if they're even, you can't do them. But if they're odd, you just pull the negative outside and then do it just like we've been doing these problems, okay? So we have 216. Okay, so if I'm looking at this, if I don't know what number's going to go into 216, is 216, is that an even number or an odd number?
Even.
It's even, so you start with 2.
If you do 2 divided by 216, it doesn't give you.
It's 216 divided by 2. So 216 divided by 2 is 2 and 108.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I need to break down 108. So what will go into 108? 2 and 54, okay. And now I have 54. You can do 2 again. 2 and 27. Okay, now I got 27. 2 won't divide into 27. 9 and 3. You could look on your factor sheet. And then 9 will break down into 3 and 3. Now, I didn't put highlighters on desk. You can just underline if you want. But I always like to go back and highlight each end of my branch so I don't overlook any of them. So I have okay, and what groups do I want? I want groups of 3 because that's your root index. So you just told me, Willina, I had one group of 2s and I have one group of 3s. Okay? So on the outside, I got to remember to keep that negative. I'm going to pull my 2 out and I'm going to pull my group of 3 out. What's left? Nothing. So the radical part, the cube root goes away, and then what do you do with these two numbers? Multiply them, and I just get negative 6. And it is because 216 is a perfect cube. Like we have perfect squares, we have perfect cubes and stuff like that, and that's what that is. That's why I showed you in the notes. They won't all be that tricky. Okay, which number are we on? 5. Okay, so let's look at this one. Okay, the number that's outside the radical, you ignore until the end. Okay, so you need to just focus on 12. What's the factors of 12? Okay, I heard 2 and 6 first. You could have done 3 and 4. Didn't matter.
2 and 3.
And 6 is 2 and 3. Okay, so here's my branches. I have a 3, I have a 2, and I have a 3. What size group do I want?
3.
Nope, it's not a cube root. If there's no number here, if there's no root index, what do we know? 2. Right? So I went groups of 2. So I'm going to come through here, and I have one group of 3s. So I have this 3 that's hanging out outside there. I have another 3 I'm going to pull out, and then what's left underneath my square root? Just a 2.
Yeah, it'd be a 2 instead of a 3.
Oh, yep. Ugh, scratch that. I messed up. This should be a 2. Well, Miss Harrison can't factor that. No wonder you guys were looking at me weird. Okay, so hopefully you didn't make my mistake. So what am I going to pull out? I'm going to pull out a 2. Now that I confused everybody. Does that make better sense? 2, 2, and 3 are my factors of 12.
Oh, they are. I see that.
Okay.
That's the first one.
Yeah, I messed up the first number. And then 3 times 2 is 6. So you get 6 the square root of 3. And we're going to take this whole week to learn this process because you have to know this process before you can multiply, add, or subtract. Or divide, but we don't have time to get to division. Okay, let's do another one similar to that since I messed that one up big time. Okay, what number are we on? 6. Okay. Okay, so when we start out, we're going to ignore anything that's out front. So we're just going to look at the square root of 24. What is 2 numbers that factor into 24? 3 and 8. Okay, we can do 3 and 8. And then I'm going to break down 8. What goes into 8? 2 and 4. And then I have to break down 2, or excuse me, break down 4 into 2 and 2. Okay, so if I look at my leaves of my tree, we have a 3, a 2, a 2, and a 2. What size groups do I want? Look at your root index. I want 2. So I want one group of 2s. So on my outside, I have this -3 just hanging out. What else am I going to pull outside? The 2. Yes. And then what's left on the inside? A 3 and a 2, which gives you 6. So I'm going to multiply the outside, so I get -6, the square root of 6. And again, we're going to practice tomorrow, so we'll be really good at these. Okay, so when I look at this, the first thing I have to decide is, can I do a negative?
No.
I can. Here, why can I do a negative?
Because it's the same again.
Because it's odd, it's cubed. Okay? Yep, so think of the odd and even thing that we've been doing. So go ahead and pull that negative outside.
I thought the number on the end. Yeah, was the.
No, it's the root index. And maybe we should write that
Yeah.
on part of our notes. Yes. Okay, so 250. What do you know will go into that? And it's however you see it. What did you say? Nope, not 25 and 100. 25 and 10. Okay, so we can use 25 and 10. 25 will break down to 5 and 5. And 10 will break down to 2 and 5. Okay, so here are our leaves. Look at your root index. What do you want? You want groups of 2, groups of 3, groups of 4, groups of 5? What? Group of 3, because the root index is 3. So what do I do with that 5?
Bring it, so you bring it out.
Yep.
And then you put the number, yeah.
So -5.
And then you put the 2.
Yep, the 2's on the inside. So you get -5, the cube root of 2. Okay, so far we did squares and cubes. What's this one? If there's a 4 there, that's called the 4th root. And when I look at groups, what kind of groups am I going to want? 4. So I want 4 of the same number. Okay? So if I have 32, 4 and 8. Okay? Kiana, what 4 break down to?
2 and 2.
And 8.
4 and 2.
And then the 4 again. So lots of 2s in this one. To be specific, we have 5 of them. I want a group of how many? 4. So I come in here. There's my group of 4. So what number goes on the outside? 2. The 4th root. And what number's left? 2. So 2, the 4th root of 2. We'll do another 4th root. You guys just try to break down 112.
Wait, you really don't know the alphabet? I only know You tell people in cursive. Oh, in cursive.
256 would work
I
for
don't know how to write like a K in cursive. Oh, yeah, no, no, in cursive. Me too, except for the alphabet. Look up. I can like. Favorite part is I don't know how to write a K. Yeah. It's like I didn't know how to write a K in the What's the name of yours? I'm gonna do that every time. Most people obviously know tonight still. He was, because I didn't doubt mine. He was saying because I didn't doubt mine. Yeah. Elliot.
Okay, so if we're looking at
I was at first.
112, most of you saw this as 2 times 56. Right? And then 56, what'd you guys, different. Did anybody do that one by 2?
Can you do 7 and 16? Yeah, that's what I did.
Oh, for 112 you did 716? Yeah. I'll do that one too. I'll show you both factor trees, but 56, did you, what,
I did
you did 7 and 8?
2 and 8.
Yeah, okay, you did it. That's fine. This is 8 would be 2 and 4, and 4 would be 2 and 2. So if you did yours different, that's fine. I'll do it the way, Willina, the way you have here in just a second. Okay, so we have those of our leaves. Now I want groups of 4. So if I come through here, I have one group of 4 2s. So the 2 comes on the outside, the 4th root, and what's left is my 7. Now, Kiana, what did you break this down to?
7 and 16.
Okay, so you had 112, and you did 7 and 16.
16.
Did you do 4 and 4, or 2 and 8?
2 and 8.
Okay, that's fine. Did you break the 8 down into 2 and... I'll do it that way too, Wadlina.
Okay.
2. Okay, so you have the exact same thing. Kiana, if you see, do you see how you have your group right there? And so you would pull out the 2, and what were you left with? 7. Okay. Would you like me to do it your way also?
Oh, you can.
Okay. So the way you saw it was you had 112, and you said 7 and 16, but then 16 you said 2 and 8. And then 8 you did 2 and 4. And then 4 you did 2 and 2. So you see how you still had your group here with your 7 left over? So that was 3 different ways that we just did the same problem. Did everybody notice we got the same answer? Okay? So you can see it differently, but we still should all end up with the same answer at the end. Okay. Let's do one more. Okay, so what's the 5 mean there? What are we looking for?
Groups of 5.
Groups of 5. Okay? So try to break down 96.
Is it 9 times 2 and 48?
9 times 9 is 81.
What's 2 and 48? You get 96. What's something you get 96?
Well, is 96 is an even number, right? It ends in a 6. So start with 2. Yeah.
Okay, so.
Just because you do it by 2 the first time, you get 2 times 48. 48 you can break down into something different then. You don't have to do 2 again if you don't want to.
I got it.
Okay, what'd you break
2
96?
times 48.
Okay, 2 times 48. And then what'd you do with the 48?
No, because that's 49.
Go ahead. You can look on your factor sheet for 48 also,
Okay.
because that's on there. 48 would be,
Um, 2 and 24.
2 and 24. Okay, that you can do that. And so then 24, 2 and 12, Abby said.
And then 6 and 3. 2 and 3.
I was just keeping all my 2s. I was trying to
I
keep
did the
all my
same
2s on the same
I
side.
did the same thing.
Okay, so here are your leaves. You have a whole bunch of 2s and a lonely 3. What size group do I want?
5.
I want a group of 5. Do I have 5 2s? I have exactly 5 2s. So I'm going to do 2, the 5th root of 3. But what do I do with this negative 6 on the outside? Multiply. So negative 6 times 2 is negative 12, the 5th root of 3.